and in the 30-odd episodes of WrestleCast we've never actually had a current champion, so it's very, very nice to welcome to WrestleCast Bobby Roode. Bobby, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
You've got the belt on your shoulder there?
I do.
I imagine you keep that tight to you and sleep with it and never let it out of your sight.
I never let it out of my sight.
You've been here in the office for sort of 20 minutes or so. We've done pictures, we've done some filming of stuff. You've always got the belt with you. People want those pictures with you. It must feel really, really gratifying that you're in that. It must be a little bit of a bind sometimes and a bit frustrating, but you must always rationalise it and think, I'm the champ and people want to do this with me.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, breaking into this business almost 14 years ago, I had a dream of becoming a world champion, and now I have an opportunity to live that dream, and it's been going great.
And was there a moment, or has there been a moment yet even, where you've kind of gone, now I'm the champ? I know when you get given the belt and it's your first day and whatever, it's going to be a great elation, but maybe it takes a little bit of time to really wake up in the morning and go, I am the champ. Have you got there yet? And if you have, when did it happen?
You know, I don't know. It's just one of those things, you know, I'm a pretty humble guy. You know, I don't like to think I'm anything better than I am, and I just, you know, I work hard, and you know, every night I go out there and I work hard, and I've dreamt of this moment, you know, since I got into this business. So I knew that once I got the world title, that, you know, the job was basically just beginning for me. There was a lot of pressure that came along with it, and a lot of other duties, such as media tours, such as this, and stuff like that. So, you know, I think mentally I was prepared for it, and so I don't really think that it's overwhelmed me at all.
Do you think, had it come a year, 2 years, 3 years earlier, would you have been ready for it then? Was this the right time? Would you have been ready for it earlier on, do you think?
I don't know. That's a tough question. I've been asked that before. I mean, I don't know. It feels right this time, and obviously things happen for a reason. James and I were together and became, you know, as a part of Beer Money, we became one of the greatest tag teams of all time. So during those 4 years, you know, I think I was able to learn more and to possibly be more eager to become a world champion. And so I think that the timing was definitely right this time around.
Has it affected the way other people treat you? I don't necessarily just mean co-workers, but I mean anyone else that's that you've been around before. Is it kind of, oh, Bobby's a champ now? Do they act any differently, or are you just accepted as part of the gig? Yeah,
I don't think so. I never noticed anybody treat me any different. I hope that they don't. I mean, I'm just you know, the same guy that I was, you know, 8 years ago when I broke into this business, or broke into TNA. I'm sorry. You know, I have a pretty good work ethic, and I always want to improve. So even though I'm the world champion right now, I'm still learning, and I'm still listening, and hopefully that you know, as the years go by, I can continue to get better.
As we're recording this, we've just got to the time where you've been talking about it on TV. It's the history-making point where you're now the longest reigning champion in TNA history. That's got to be a really nice feeling as well. It
is. You know, when you get to the top of the mountain, when you become a world champion, people ask you, what's next? What are you going to do now? Now that you've reached the top, what's next? And obviously, you know, you want to make a name for yourself as a champion, and you want to be remembered as a champion. And now that I got to today, now that I got to this point where I am the longest reigning champion in the company's history, that's something to be very proud of. And, you know, so that was something that actually was one of my goals, was to be able to hang on to it long enough to get into the history books and to become one of the most recognizable champions in the company.
Is it difficult when you get it to set those kind of goals? Because I guess, especially with the first time you've got it, do you sit there and think, well, I'll just let it ride and I'll just try and enjoy the moment, or do you set yourself little targets about, you know, match quality, or about long, you know, amount of time you're going to have it? How does that work?
The length of time really never really got into my mind. It was basically just every night when I had an opportunity to go out there, whether it was you know, a 2-minute promo, or whether it was a 20-minute match, or whatever the situation was, I always wanted to make it the best I could and make it memorable. So I think that kind of helped along the way, and you know, I kind of proved to a lot of people that maybe I was a perfect fit for this belt right now, and hopefully I can continue to make history and have great matches and have great moments.
You're still holding it, folks, by the way. Everyone listening at home is still clutching that very, very tightly. I'm not going to take it from you, trust me. Moving back to the Bound for Glory series, which was when you really got established as a singles guy for the first time, really, in TNA, and you were given the opportunity to stand out and have the match with Kurt at Bound for Glory. When you did that, it was as a babyface. It was coming out of Fortune, and it was being your own man. Did you think when you were going to get hold of it, you'd be a hero champion, a babyface champion, and do you prefer getting to do it the way you're doing it now?
In hindsight, this was the perfect way to do it. I mean, I'm definitely more comfortable in the role that I'm in, and that match with Kurt was something that I'm very proud of, even though it went the way it did. There was such a big build-up and such a big moment for the company, and a huge moment, obviously, for me to be able to get in the ring with Kurt, and in a main event situation at the biggest pay-per-view of our company's history at the time. So the match is something that I'll never forget. It was an eye-opener for me. To where I am today, it really made me realize how things can change and how the wrestling business works.
How good is he, Kurt? For us mere mortals that will never get to step in the ring, and how can you explain to us just how good he is?
Kurt, for the guys that I've been in the ring with, I mean, Kurt is probably without a doubt the best. I mean, he's been around for a long time. He's the only Olympic gold medalist in the history of the business. At his age and physically where he's at, he is still, in my opinion, in his prime. He's never lost a step. So, that, like I said, that night I was very proud of it. I was able to hang in there with Kurt, and I thought that we told a pretty good story. And hopefully, down the road, I would love to have another match with Kurt.
Of all the matches you've had since you've been the champ, have you got a favourite so far?
There's a couple favorites. One of them wasn't actually even televised. One of the ones that kind of sticks out of my mind was the match I had over here in Manchester with Samoa Joe. Mm-hmm. Joe and I had a great singles match that night. It was a great crowd. That's something that's kind of stuck out in my mind. Obviously, the cage match with James, the build-up around it, and facing, the two former partners facing off against each other was in Nashville, Tennessee, where it all really began for me in this company and for James. So it had some nostalgia to it. So that's something that also stuck out in my mind.
Well, I'll get back to talking some tour stuff later on, but while you bring that up, I want to ask you about the two not conflicting, but the two things that go in hand. You mentioned Manchester and you mentioned the crowd this year. I was at that show and I thought that's as good a crowd as I've ever seen in this country for a big-time event. The crowd was phenomenal that night. And you also mentioned the fact that you two got together in Liverpool, and that was also an incredible... it was in a theatre, wasn't it? It was in the Olympia Theatre, right. And it had a different kind of atmosphere. Do you notice that when you, as soon as you walk out the curtain, and it's a different kind of atmosphere, and it raises your game? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, anytime you can kind of step outside of your home base, which is basically the home base for us has been the Impact Zone in Orlando. And so anytime you can step outside of that and walk into a crowd of thousands of crazy wrestling fans who are there to see wrestling, who are there to see the characters that they see on TV is obviously gets you going, and it gets you motivated to go out there and perform. And, every time we come over here, the crowds are incredible. So that's why we keep coming back.
As I say, I'll get back to that in just a sec. But while we're talking about the title run, a couple of people have sometimes said that in most of the matches you've had, save for the last one with RVD, the finishes have obviously been worked so that you can cling onto it as a heel champion, clinging onto the belt. Some would say that has devalued it. Others would say that it makes your character even stronger, the fact that you're kind of dastardly heel and keeping it. What's your assessment of how they've gone?
Well, I mean, I don't write the shows. I just go out there and perform. But obviously, I'm doing something right. Something's being done right because I'm, from a wrestling standpoint, I'm meant to be hated. Mm-hmm. So if more people hate me, then I guess I'm doing a pretty good job. I don't think it devalues the world title at all. I think it's just it's intriguing, and it makes people want to watch and makes people want to see me get beat. And every time I win, it pisses them off even more.
Indeed. And so I guess eventually, whenever it may come that you drop it, it's a case of making whoever you give it to look the better and have them be that more of a hero for finally getting it off you, I guess.
Absolutely.
Moving back to the last pay-per-view, Sacrifice, your match with Van Damme. When someone comes to you and says it's RVD, you're going to be wrestling, I'm sure you go, great, big star, I'm looking forward to it. When they say it's going to be a ladder match, what goes through your mind?
Obviously a ladder match isn't my specialty. Obviously it played into the hands of Rob. He's seemingly perfected that match over his entire career, really. Rob has a different style, very unique style, something that I wasn't really accustomed to, ladder match or no ladder match. But we had some good chemistry together leading up to that match, doing live events and that sort of thing. So I was actually looking forward to the match. I knew that we could bring something special, and I knew that I knew what Rob, had in his arsenal as far as ladder matches and ideas and stuff like that. So I just went out there and did the best I could, and I think we had a pretty good match.
Once again, we're people that don't get to step into the ring and don't go through the physical pain that you do. So there must be, I've heard Jim Ross say this on countless occasions, there'll be some idiot at home saying, well, they know how to fall. And it's like, those ladders, they look like they hurt. How much do they hurt?
I mean, they're ladders, so if you want to go do a somersault onto a ladder, or do you want to dive onto a ladder face first, I mean, go for it, and you can tell me how it feels. Yeah. I mean, you can't, there's nothing, in all of professional wrestling, I mean, it's not ballet. I mean, there's bumps and bruises. I'm hurting from that match. I've been hurting it's been 2 weeks, and I'm still fairly beat up from that match. So, but like I said, it's part and parcel of the business, and it's what you know getting into it. So, I mean, it's very, very physical, especially in matches like that.
But I guess the rewards are there, because I'm sure people have said to you in the last couple of weeks what a good match it was, and I'm not just, being sycophantic because we're sat here. I thought it was the best match you've had so far since you've been champ. I really, really enjoyed it. In fact, I enjoyed the whole show. What was the vibe coming out of the show? Because I thought it was a great show. Yeah,
I think everybody, top to bottom, I thought performed great. I think it was one of our best pay-per-views we've thrown out there this year. So I think it's a good thing, because I think we're going to keep rolling. Obviously, this month coming up in June is our milestone year, our 10-year anniversary. So I think everybody's looking forward to that.
Let's go right back in time, if I may. So when was the first time that you can remember watching wrestling as a kid? How old were you, and what do you remember seeing? I
want to say maybe 6 or 7. It was quite a while ago. I mean, I just remember watching it my entire life, really, from a very small age.
Who was your first guy? Who was the first one you saw on TV and said, I like him, he's my guy?
Well, obviously, growing up in Canada and Toronto, I saw a lot of Hulk Hogan at that time, and he was the major star, Andre the Giant, guys like that. I never really pictured myself as a pro wrestler at that young of an age. I was a hockey player, so I always wanted to play hockey, but I wanted to grow up and play in the NHL, but that never turned out. But in my mind, I always wanted to be a professional athlete of some aspect. I played a lot of sports when I was a kid, and obviously, watching wrestling, going to pro wrestling matches whenever they came to town, I always had a front row seat. My parents used to take me, so I kind of got it in my blood as I grew older. I really wanted to explore the business and try it. And there were guys like, I remember one of the guys that really got me wanted to be in the business was Kurt Hennig. Ric Flair, of course, was another guy. Rick Rude. Those are the 3 guys that I think really inspired me to become a pro wrestler.
And the fact that you bring up Rick Rude, I always think that people must think that either his name was a gimmick or your name's a gimmick, but it's not, is it? I mean, there's no relation or whatever, but it's both. That is your name. That's kind of fortunate, a bit, poetic, really.
Yeah, it is. People actually still to this day, in Nashville at lockdown 2 months ago, were saying that how much they loved my dad when he wrestled, and the people just don't understand, but. It is. I mean, Rick Rude's last name was spelled, for wrestling was R-U-D-E, but his actual spelling was R-O-O-D, and mine has an E on the end of it. So it is. It's kind of ironic, but, I guess it's meant to be.
So you've grown up seeing them. What was the first moment when you actually maybe got involved, did a training session? How old were you, and how did you get involved?
I was 19 years old. I started training. I went and did a security for Val Venus. He was, Sean Morley lived maybe 20 minutes from where I lived, and we were friends. And he came home from Puerto Rico at the time and ran an independent show. And he said if I worked as security for him, then in turn he would start training me. So I did that, and it was for a very short time, because Sean ended up going on to bigger and better things. And but I had the opportunity to be trained one-on-one. It wasn't a classroom. It wasn't with a bunch of other guys. It was just all the attention was paid to me. So I was very, very lucky. And after Sean went off to bigger and better things, his former tag partner that was in Puerto Rico came back to town as well. His name was Shane Sewell, who actually had a small stint in TNA. Yeah. He trained me for 3 or 4 months every weekend, and again, it was very one-on-one. And I was very lucky because Shane was very, very good. And not only did they teach me, stuff in the ring, but they taught me the business outside of the ring to prepare me for stuff. So after that, I kind of networked and started to get bookings. I guess it wasn't until 1998. I first got my first match in 1998. The month, I think it was June. And I remember doing an independent show and then meeting the guys at the independent shows who got me booked on other shows. And then I went over and had a small stint over in Puerto Rico with Shane and came back. And then I started to network and started to get more well known, and went over to there was a territory that was in the eastern part of Canada that I started in 2000, and we would wrestle every single day, so Monday through Sunday, for 3 months. So I really, really learned how to work and how to wrestle and to travel and to manage my money and things like that. And I did that for 2 years. For 2 summers I did that. So it really helped me out a lot doing that kind of stuff.
Was there any point in the early days where you went, no, this is not for me, did anyone have to talk you back in? Or was it always kind of, as soon as you did it, you knew that was going to be like...
I knew as soon as I stepped in the ring. The first time I stepped into Sean's ring at his house in his backyard and we started training, the first time I stepped in there, I knew that this was what I had to do.
Having grown up as a wrestling fan, you said you've watched it as much as you can remember. Do you think that growing up as a wrestling fan and knowing that you're a fan first and then a wrestler second, perhaps, do you think that helps in terms of, is it impossible for someone that's never really watched it, happens to have done another sport, let's say, gets brought into wrestling, is it possible for them to get to the level that you guys that have been fans have got?
No, I don't think it's impossible. Obviously, it's been done. But I think to be successful in this business, to be, be a major success, I think you have to be a wrestling fan. You have to love it. You have to have pride in it, and you have to want to do it. I mean, a lot of guys come from bodybuilding or come in from football and don't have that passion for the business and come in and, spend a couple of years here or there. But I think the passion is what keeps you alive and what gives you the longevity in your career, because you want to be there and you want to work hard, and it's being in that ring and in front of the people and performing every night. I think that keeps you going.
One of the people you mentioned earlier on was Kurt Hennig, and I think that comes across that you're a fan of his. I think there's a similarity in your work. Is it a case when you're not trying to emulate someone, but you're trying to sort of learn from the things you've picked up from them? Is it important? At what point do you kind of go, this is me, and not this is what I can do from what I've seen other people do? Yeah,
I mean, again, breaking into the business, one of the things that I learned was to be an individual and be different, because that's how you'll get seen. If you're different from everybody else, then you're going to stand out. A lot of comparisons to Kurt is because I studied, I have 8 DVDs of Kurt Hennig, hours and hours of hours from the time he broke in AWA with his father up until, his last few matches. I mean, I've watched every single one of them. So I don't think it's, I've never once tried to copy. I never once tried to be Kurt Hennig. There's only ever going to be one Kurt Hennig. So I think that I get comparisons maybe just because I've studied him so much and stuff like that. But never once have I ever tried to be somebody that I'm not.
Do you think he's someone, I know within the industry he's very rightly revered and highly thought of. Do you think that perhaps sometimes outside of the immediate environments of the industry, people don't realise just how good he was?
I think so. I mean, Kurt was, unfortunately, was always kind of a mid-card guy, Intercontinental Champion or whatever. He was never in the world title picture, never got an opportunity to be a world champion, which is a shame, because he, in my opinion, deserved that spot. He was such a great character, did such a great promo, had such, his skill in the ring was phenomenal and was so entertaining. I don't think people actually realize how good he was.
No, I remember the first pay-per-view I ever saw was SummerSlam 91, which was him and Brett in Madison Square Garden. And I think that still stands up 22, however many years later. It was phenomenal, wasn't it?
Right, yeah. And I mean, injuries got the best of him too, and he ended up turning into a color commentator and a manager, and it was a shame. All of them. He was great. Yeah, I mean, he was a character.
In your early years, your first couple of years, you mentioned some of the stuff you did then. Did you have a character? What was your, did you have a gimmick name? How were you, what kind of performer were you in the early days?
In the early days, I mean, I started out 98. I mean, I was a lot smaller. I was not smaller, but I always wanted to try to do some high-flying stuff, but it really wasn't my style. I don't know. It was never really a gimmicky guy. I just wanted to wrestle and wanted to perform and have good matches. And that, like I said, I kept learning along the way. Kept studying tapes and things like that. And I never really tried to do anything I knew I couldn't. Just try to stick to the basics and try to do the best I could.
Did you ever get asked to do anything ridiculous? Like, hey, come in and we'll put a mask and we'll put a tail on you and you can fly off. Did you ever have to go, hang on a minute?
No, I mean, I did wear a mask when I was in Puerto Rico for that short time. but I was 9 matches into my career, so I was willing to do anything to be seen. So, but no, there was never an instance where they wanted me to do something crazy, and I had to say no.
What is it about Canada? You mentioned growing up in Canada, and what is it about Canadian wrestlers? Because you can just reel them off, from yourself and Brett and Edge and Christian and Lance Storm, and we could go on forever doing that. What is it about Canada that produces those kind of really, really good, respected workers?
I don't know. I think it's just, when you think about it, like from being from Canada, I know that there's a lot of independents out there in Canada, and there's a lot of wrestlers that try to make it and don't. So I think it's just the same as, in the States where some guys make it, some guys don't. I think, there's only the ones that make it to TV and from Canada, are the stars, you know what I mean? But there are a lot of good wrestlers in Canada that don't make it. But I don't know what it is. I think we've Canada has a lot of success in producing great wrestlers, like the guys you've mentioned before. Even women wrestlers. You have Gail Kim, you have Natty Neidhart. There's a whole list of guys and girls that are very good. But I think we take pride in what we do. I think we all grew up wrestling fans. Everyone that you mentioned were wrestling fans and have turned out to be pretty successful.
Is there something about being, I don't mean a minority in a really negative sense, but the fact that America is the thing, the US is the thing as far as wrestling goes. So people will talk about the British guys, and we've got a lot of talent doing really well over there at the moment, and then you can say about the Canadian guys or the Mexican guys. Is it because America's the big thing and it's people making it in the big league? Do you think that's what it is, and you kind of bind together a little bit and have a bit more national identity?
Yeah, I think so. I think the US fans are so pro-US. So even, starting out in Team Canada, we were hated. And, we were their neighbors to the north. I don't think we ever did anything wrong to the United States. But because we were from a different country, they hated us, I think U.S. fans are definitely pro-U.S. So it made things, as a heel, made things a lot easier for guys like myself and Edge and Christian and guys like that.
Do you think that obviously it must work, that kind of thing, because not only... in '97 was the whole Hart Foundation US-Canada thing, but there was a Canada stable that Lance Storm had in WCW, then you had the one in the early days of TNA. It's almost like it's a kind of shorthand, isn't it, for a way to get people to... Yeah,
it definitely lets the people know who we are, it gives them a sort of character, whether how cheesy it could be just because you're from a different country, but it definitely helps.
Fill in some gaps then between the first couple of years that you've mentioned and then when you got to TNA. How long was it, and what were you up to in between?
From the time I started to the time I got into TNA?
From the time you mentioned the first couple of years of doing that summer. How long was it until you got to TNA?
Well, it was 6 years.
So what were you doing in between?
Obviously independence, and then those 2 tours I did in the eastern part of Canada. And from there, I continued to do independents and tried to get booked, and I did some dark matches and some tryout matches, and I really just tried to get my name out there, and it got frustrating at times, but there were times where I thought about walking away, but there was just the passion that I had for the business, and I didn't want to quit. I just wanted to continue to wrestle because I knew deep down inside, I knew that I could make it in this business. I knew I could. It's just everything in this business really is timing, and it was all timing when I got to TNA. What was
the? How did you first get involved? Were you sending tapes when you got noticed? Did they see you? How did you get there?
No, actually, with TNA, it was Scott D'Amore who was with the company at the time, and honestly, it was like I said, it was just timing because they needed another Canadian to come in for the X Cup while they were running that in Nashville. On the Wednesday night pay-per-views, they needed another guy for the Team Canada group, and there was myself and another guy that was mentioned, and Scott was the guy that was talking to Jeff Jarrett, trying to decide on who to bring in, and I obviously wasn't an X Division type of guy, but Scott pushed for me, and Jeff said okay and brought me in, and then I met Jeff, and honestly, it was like the first time, our first match that we had on pay-per-view, it was instantly, they saw something in me and saw something in the group, and honestly, the Team Canada thing was supposed to last 2 weeks. And we ended up going to Fox Sports Net in the States when we got our TV deal there, and we just stayed, and here I am today.
Do you think that the time you spent in the independents and just honing your craft and having knockdowns and thinking you're not going to get there, that must make you a better person and a better performer, mustn't it? The fact that you've gone through that and you've not had it all handed to you.
Sure.
You can go through it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, you learn a lot along the way. I wouldn't have changed anything. Unfortunately now in this business, there's only two major companies that you can really go to. But, back in the early, late 70s, early, through the 80s and some in the early 90s, there was territories people could go to. Guys could go and work and leave and go and make money all over the country, all over the world. It's not like that anymore. So I was very fortunate to be able to go, like I said, to the eastern part of Canada and work those territories and really learn. And then obviously become humble when you go to do these matches and try out and you never get anything. You never get a call back, and you go again and you try to change something that you did before and nothing seems to work. So you really become humble, and you learn to appreciate the opportunities that you get.
When you first, was it still at the fairgrounds when you went to the first game to Nashville?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you first came in and you saw what it was, and then, like you say, it didn't take long, and it was on Fox Sport now. Did you at the time think this is something that's going to be major? It could be a competitor one day. Did you just see it as just another little organisation? And are you surprised at how things have changed over the? Was it 8 years you've been there?
Yeah. Yeah. When I first got there, it was small. I mean, we were literally wrestling at the fairgrounds in this barn that had seats in it, and it was a cool setup. Obviously, I mean, it was pay-per-view, but again, there was so much talk of us not being able to make it to the next week, and whether we'd be able to cash our checks, or whether we would be able to rely on flying in to do the next pay-per-view, or what was going to happen. And to stand here today, myself 8 years later, but for the company 10 years, and to go from the weekly pay-per-views to obviously the international tours to taping TV internationally now. For our television show on Spike TV in North America, our 2-hour program now that's gone from 9 p.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. Eastern, which is a better time slot now. Of course, the announcement of us going live, and our monthly pay-per-views and traveling all over the world. I mean, it's grown leaps and bounds, and in such a short amount of time. So it's been great to be riding that along the way.
As you bring it up, what's the how's it going to change how you have to do things? The fact that it's gone live, does it make a difference to you at all?
You know what, it does. It really does. It changes the aspect for everybody, because it's not going to be a tape show. So when you're live, you're live. Anything can happen when you're live, and I think that it brings out the best in everybody too. And I think as far as the viewers go, I think it's going to give them an opportunity to tune in, because like I said, when you're live, anything can happen. So I think it's going to help hopefully boost our ratings a little bit, and hopefully bring in some new fans as well.
What's the experience been like? You mentioned filming TV here. It was filmed at Wembley in January. I believe it's going to be again this coming tour in a few months' time. And then you've done some pay-per-views on the road, a few impacts on the road. How does it feel? Really nice getting in front of a bigger crowd, and and knowing that they've paid to get in there and they're a little bit more vociferous. Is it nice doing that? Yeah,
absolutely. I'm a huge fan of that. The Impact Zone has been our home since for 8 years, 7-8 years, and it's a great place to go wrestle, and it's comfortable. But the truth is, I think for us to take that next step and to be a larger company and to grow, I think we really have to take our TV show on the road. And anytime we have, in my opinion, the appearance on screen looks so much better. The talent is so much more excited about performing and going. It's just a totally different feel. So hopefully in the near future we can take our TV show on the road.
With Slammiversary coming up, and jumping back a couple of steps and talking about you being there for a long time, and of course there's a core of you, isn't there? There's yourself, and there's AJ and Joe and James and lots of others that have been around for a long time, Eric Young. Is it that much more, you have that much more pride going into a show like that you've got the belt and you've been able to say, I've been around all this time, look what I've got, look what I've achieved, and look what I've done for the company that supported me? Yeah,
I think staying loyal to TNA it was something that's, staying loyal in this business is unheard of, really. But I've always believed in the company, and now to step into Slammiversary in the main event is, I haven't really thought about it too much, to be honest with you. But obviously, it's going to be a very special night, and it's going to mean a lot to me to be in that position. And I think just for the company, for the guys like you mentioned, guys like James and AJ and even Abyss has been there from the beginning, and Eric Young, Chris Daniels. I mean, lots of guys have stayed and been loyal, and I think it's going to be an emotional night for all of us. I think we're all looking forward to it.
Without going too deep into this, if you don't want to, the fact that I'm just picking up on the fact that you said stayed loyal.
Mm-hmm.
Have there been opportunities to go elsewhere?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We don't want to go any further.
I mean, I have had opportunities, but just timing wasn't right, I guess, for myself, and I felt like TNA was the place for me to be at the time.
When it comes to actually wrestling with James,
mm-hmm.
was there a time where you were with Beer Money and you were tearing it up, and everyone accepted that what a great team you were? And again, not being sycophantic, but it's true. Did you sit there one day, maybe having a beer after a show or on the road or something, and say, "We're going to be in the main event soon, me and you"?
Yeah, there were times like that. Yeah, for sure. We always James and I had a lot in common when it came to the business aspect of it. We had great chemistry together in the ring as a tag team, and I think we both knew that our time would come where we could, carry the weight of a main event match, and as we felt comfortable as a team, but we knew that we wasn't going to last long. We both wanted the same thing. We both wanted to be world champions, and we've both been in the company for a long time, and we felt like we deserved a chance. So, being at lockdown, like I said earlier, that match in the main event between him and I had a lot of nostalgia to it and meant a lot to both of us.
I guess the fact that it was in Nashville as well, that was a little icing on the cake.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, no names, no pat drill on this one. I absolutely wouldn't do that to you. But when there's a core of you that have been there for so long, has there ever been an occasion, even just one, where someone new has come in, whether it's a big star, whether it's a rising star, they've come in, they've maybe not treated the place with the reverential nature that you think they might have done, and some of you have had to go, oi, behave yourself, this is TNA, this is what we bill?
Not really. I mean, we've never really spoke up and said anything. Everybody has their own opinions on things, and the bottom line is the guys that have been here from day one have always wanted this place to be successful, and we never really wanted we never wanted anybody to come in and hurt us, and I don't think there has been anybody, to be honest with you. We just keep going, and we keep, every time, the TNA Original guys, the guys that have been here for a while, you don't have to worry about us, because we're there for a reason. We love the business, we love what we do, and we're going to perform regardless. So there's never been an individual, I don't think, that's came in and we've had that feeling.
Good. Some of the names that you mentioned to begin with, the likes of Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, massive stars, the biggest stars in the history of the industry, they're now co-workers. Mm-hmm. Do you ever have a point where you look to one side and go, it's pretty cool that, or are you above that now?
No, when I'm in the ring at the time, I don't think, wow, this is, have that moment. But there's times where it's like, it's pretty cool. The one moment that sticks out is here when we did the tour this past January. We had a 6-man tag every night. It was myself and Kurt Angle and Bully Ray against James, Sting, and Hulk Hogan, and that was really cool. To be able to put that in my back pocket when I retire, I can look back and say, I wrestled Hulk Hogan and Sting in the same match. But it's cool, and the thing is that Hulk's pretty supportive of me as well, despite the fact that people thought that he wasn't very supportive of me back at Bound for Glory. Things happen for a reason in this business, and obviously it's turned out pretty successful.
That could have been good coaching in a way, spurred you on a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it was an eye opener for me that day, and it actually made me turn the Jets on a little more and want to be, work even harder. Good
bit of motivation. Yeah. I saw you in Manchester the night after you'd had the first match in Nottingham with Sting and Hogan and the guys that you mentioned. I think what I got from watching that match was just how much you guys seem to be enjoying it. I know you obviously were playing your role and playing up the fact that they were the guys that were coming to be the heroes, and you had to back off a little bit. But I could certainly see in James's face, and all you guys looked like you were really having a ball with that. Yeah. I think fans really get attached to when they're watching wrestlers and they can see that you're really enjoying your craft. And
I mean, I think that makes it exciting for everybody. If we're having fun, the people are having fun, and those matches were great. We had everybody had a lot of fun. We were really happy with it.
When there was the split between the Immortal group and the Fortune group, and you guys went off to be heroes, you got to work a lot with Ric Flair. Mm-hmm. There's the image of the Fujiwara armbar and all that. I think that, in my opinion, that's the thing that really made you at that point and has got you where you were. I think that was the moment. I think everyone needs that moment. I think that was yours. Do you agree? And what was it like being asked to be the guy that had that moment?
Yeah, that could have been a moment. There was also a moment where I did a promo in the ring with Hulk Hogan, where Fortune stood in the ring, and I was the one that talked, and he started to cut a promo on Hulk Hogan. That was the beginning of that too. But obviously, the thing with Rick is very memorable for me. Unfortunately, I think we were actually supposed to have a match against each other, which would have been great. Which that's on my bucket list as well. But it didn't happen. But obviously, Rick was very helpful to me. Back with Fortune and with Beer Money when we were here a couple of years ago. He was on the tour, and he was our manager, and got to spend a lot of time with him in and out of the ring, and got to travel around with him. So definitely being able to work with Rick in the ring on TV was something very special.
I'm on record as far as the Fortune thing goes and saying I love the chemistry you guys had, not necessarily just because TNA Originals and all that, but you all had your own individual style, but when you teamed, you wore the same sort of colours. It just felt like a unit. I think sometimes things get thrown together, and sometimes they feel like a unit, and sometimes they don't. Of course, the first time you and James were, it clicked. I think Magnus and Samoa Joe, something has happened there, and they just feel like a team.
Right.
That must be quite nice when that kind of magic happens, I guess, and it just feels right.
Yeah, and it has to. I mean, everything has to do with the talent too. I mean, you either want to be a part of it or you don't, and it shows. It comes across in your performance. And I know the Fortune thing. We all. It was our idea to do that. The four of us to kind of bring that together. AJ and I talked about it, and having Rick brought in too was kind of like a four horseman thing. But it was a good time. I mean, we all were on board with the idea and all wanted to work together and make it great, and I think we did.
With having someone, going back to what I mentioned about the incident with Flair, or not incident, but the moment, is it because they have such iconic status that when you do something like that, it raises how you appear in the fans' eyes? Also, the promo with Hogan would be another great example.
Right.
A great talker in the ring, and the fact that you can stand toe-to-toe, eye-to-eye with him, that raises you in people's mind, doesn't it? So if you don't bring those guys in, who are you matching? You're only matching your own guys. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. One of the things that I was taught was to be at whoever you're in the ring with. Like, for instance, when I was in the ring with Rick, I have to bring myself up to Rick's level. Even though he's Ric Flair, and I have to somehow be at his level, or if not better, to make people believe in me. And it's something that a lot of people, unfortunately, don't understand in this business. They falter. They fall, and they get an opportunity, but they drop the ball. And I knew that I was getting an opportunity, and I wanted to make the best of it. So I think I did.
Moving on to next January, the tour's a little bit bigger this year, an extra date or two, Glasgow's back in, and you're going to Dublin as well, 5-date tour, other European stuff. Is it a highlight of your year? Is it when January comes, is it something you're great with going over, or is it a little bit, it's a long tour, it's a bit of a drag by the end of it? How do you assess coming over?
No, I think it's really our only major international tour we usually do every year, so I always look forward to it, because I know that the fans are always great over here, and of course this year, every year we do something different, make it special. And this year we're going to start the Road to Lockdown, and every night in every town there's going to be one cage match. So it's going to give a little preview to the Lockdown pay-per-view. So it should be pretty interesting.
If anyone's interested in going to the tour and hasn't got their tickets yet, you can go to TNA's Facebook page and TNAWrestling.com where some of the information is. Have you got a favourite moment from being over here? Maybe you've been here with other companies other than TNA. I'm not totally sure, but have you got a favourite moment from all those tours? It might not even be an in-ring one. It might be something out of the ring.
No, I mean it's obviously in the ring, because that's what we're here to do, is to wrestle and perform. But one is definitely when we were in Dublin at the National Stadium with Ric Flair. It was Beer Money versus the England guys. It was Magnus and Doug, and Ric Flair was our manager, and I remember the crowd was just on their feet the whole time, and we're eating everything up, and it was one of those moments where everybody was just having fun. We were out there and we were enjoying ourselves, and we just ate it up, and that was very memorable. As well, last year with the match I had with Joe at Manchester, Coming here, of course, as the world champion and being in the main event every night was something very special as well. And of course, I mean, the matches with Hogan and Sting. I mean that last year's tour was definitely a huge standout for me, just because I was in the position to be in a main event and defending my world title. Now,
I'll let you go very soon, Bobby, because we're sat in a stuffy studio on the 4th floor here, and actually it's a beautiful sunny day. I bet you haven't seen sunshine like this in the UK before.
No,
it always drizzles.
I think I brought it with me this time.
That's it. You have to come back more often and enjoy a summer. But I've got to address the elephant in the room before I let you go. What's happened to the hair, mate? What's the hair?
Oh, just time for a change. I had my the long hair has been around for 8 years, and it was time to get a little bit more modern. And to be honest, it was just a bit of a bother. You could tell after every match, my hair was getting so dry and dull, and I just I wanted to cut it for a while, but the time was right after lockdown, I think, just to kind of start a new chapter in my career and moving forward. So I actually like it a lot better.
And the name as well. We share a name, really. But Bobby. It's Bobby at the moment. You've changed a couple of times. Has that been your doing to change it around?
No, it was never my doing, actually. I came in as Bobby Roode, and then they changed it to Robert, I guess, to sound more heelish, I guess. But I mean, I still get Robert. I mean, JB does live interviews with me and calls me Robert when I'm Bobby. I mean, it really doesn't matter, to be honest. It's just, I think people know me to see me and hopefully appreciate what I do.
Do you think I could be a bit more heelish if I called myself Robert more often? Do you think that would work for me?
It could. That accent probably does it, though.